Hello my fabulous dream chasers and welcome back to my channel. You're probably wondering why this isn't a gameplay video. It's because I found the book. So, this is the 7th installment of Nancy Drew, The Secret of the Old Clock. And we're going to begin with chapter 13. The frustrating wait. At first, Nancy was too frightened to think logically. She beat upon the door with her fists, but the heavy oak panels would not give way. "Help! Help!" she screamed. At last, exhausted by her efforts to force the door open, she sank down on the floor. The house was as silent as a tomb. Bad as her predicament was, Nancy felt thankful that enough air seeped into the closet to permit normal breathing. Although she had little hope that there was anyone within miles of the cottage, Nancy got to her feet, raised her voice, and again shouted for help. Her cries echoed through the empty house and seemed to mock her. Oh, if you're wondering what that beeping voice was, it was video call. Oh, why didn't I have enough sense to tell Helen where I was going? She berated herself miserably. The girls at camp will never dream that I came here. Then Nancy remembered mournfully that her father thought she intended to remain at Camp Avondale for a week. He would not become alarmed over her absence until it was too late. "Someone may find my car at the side of the road," Nancy reasoned, "but it isn't very likely. Few people pass this way so early this season." She wondered. I keep getting wandered and wondered confused because they sound so similar. It's just that one letter is changed. She wondered, with a shudder, what had become of Jeff Tucker. The thief called Sid had hinted that the caretaker had received the same treatment as Nancy. If he was locked up somewhere, she could expect no aid from him. "Those thieves will get so far away that even if I could get out of here, I'd be too late." Excuse me. As the full significance of the situation dawned upon Nancy, panic again took possession of her. In a desperate attempt to break down the door, she threw her weight against it again and again. She pounded on the panels until her fingers were bruised and bleeding. At last she sank down again on the floor to rest, and tried to force herself to reason calmly. "I'm only wasting my strength this way. I must try to think logically." Nancy recalled that it was sometimes possible to pick a lock with a wire. She removed a bobby pin from her hair, opened it, and began to work at the lock. But in the darkness she could not see and had made no progress. After 15 minutes she gave up the task in disgust. "It's no use," she decided dejectedly. I guess I'm in here for good." She began to think of her father, of Hannah Gruen, of Helen Corning, and other dear friends. Would she ever see them again? As despondency claimed Nancy, she was dangerously near tears. "This will never do," she reprimanded herself sternly. "I must keep my head and try to think of some way to escape." The trapped girl began to rummage in the closet, hoping that by some lucky chance she might find a tool which would help her force the lock of the door. Nancy searched carefully through the pockets of every garment which hung from the hooks. She groped over every inch of the floor. She found nothing useful, however, and the cloud of dust which she had stirred up made breathing more difficult than before. The closet had become uncomfortably warm by this time. Longingly she thought of the fresh air and cool lake water from which she was closed off. Then, unexpectedly, Nancy's hand struck something hard. Quickly investigating with her fingers, she discovered a wooden rod suspended high overhead. It was fastened to either side wall and ran the length of the closet. Evidently, it had once been used for dress and coat hangers. I might be able to use that rod to break out a panel of the door, Nancy thought hopefully. It feels strong and it's about the right size. She tugged at the rod with all her might. When it did not budge, she swung herself back and forth on it. At last, amid the cracking of plaster, one side gave way. Another hard jerk brought the rod down. To Nancy's bitter disappointment, she found that unfortunately the rod was too long to use as a ram in the cramped space. But after further examination, she discovered that it had pointed ends. I might use this rod as a wedge in the crack, she thought hopefully. The young sleuth inserted one end in the space between the hinges and the door. She threw all of her weight against the rod. At first, the door did not move in the slightest. That old Greek scientist Archimedes didn't know what he was talking about when he said the world could be moved with a lever, Nancy murmured. I'd like to see him move this door. Nancy's so sassy. As she applied steady pressure to the rod a second time, she saw that the hinges were beginning to move. Encouraged, Nancy again pushed full force on the lever. It's coming, she cried. Once more she threw her weight against the rod. A hinge tore from the casing and the door sagged. It was now easy to insert the wedge, and Nancy joyously realized that success would soon be hers. With renewed strength, she continued her efforts. Then, just as another hinge gave way, she was startled to hear footsteps. Someone came running into the study. A heavy body hurled itself against the door of the closet. For a moment, Nancy was stunned. Could this be one of the thieves who had heard the noise she had made and had returned to make sure that she did not escape? She discarded the theory quickly. Surely the three men would want to get far away as quickly as possible. But who was this newcomer? One of the Tophams? So, one of you ornery robbers got yourself locked up, did ya? Came an indignant? I think it's indignant male voice. That'll teach you to try putting one over an old Jeff Tucker. Oh, on old Jeff Tucker. You won't be doing any more pilfering. I got you surrounded. The caretaker. Nancy heaved a sigh of fervent relief. Okay. Let me out, she pleaded. I'm not one of the thieves. If you'll only let me out of here, I'll explain everything. There was silence for a moment. Then the voice on the other side of the door said dubiously, "Say, you aiming to throw me off imitating the lady's voice? Well, it won't do you any good, no sir. Old Jeff Tucker's not getting fooled again." I just decided to give him kind of a British voice. I don't know why. Nancy decided to convince the man beyond doubt. She gave a long, loud, feminine scream. Feminine scream. I don't know why I have a hard time saying feminine. Wait, I just said it perfectly right there. What the hell? All right, ma'am. I believe you. No man can make that racket. This way out, lady. Expectantly, Nancy waited, but the door did not open. Then she heard, to her dismay, "If that ain't the limit, the key's gone, and I've left my ring of extra keys somewhere. It's not in my pockets." Nancy groaned. "Oh, Mr. Tucker, you must find it. Have you looked in every one of your pockets? Please hurry and get me out." "Hold on, ma'am," the caretaker said soothingly. I'll just check again." Nancy was beginning to think she would still have to break down the door, when she heard Jeff Tucker exclaim, "Found it! You were right, ma'am. Key was in my back pocket all the time. Please open the door," Nancy broke in desperately. Like, that means she interrupted him, obviously. A key turned in the lock, and the bolt clicked. Joyfully, Nancy pushed the door open and stepped out. For a moment, the bright sunlight in the room almost blinded her. When her vision adjusted, she saw a very tall, thin, elderly man in blue shirt and overalls. He stared at her with concern and amazement. "Mr. Tucker," she explained quickly, "I'm Nancy Drew. I was here looking for you when those awful thieves came and locked me in the closet." She paused and gazed at the caretaker. "I'm glad to see you're all right. Their leader told me they'd locked you up too." Wait, no, that was Nancy saying that. I thought it was Mr. Tucker saying it. Let me try that again. "I'm glad to see that you're all right. Their leader told me they had locked you up too." She then asked the elderly man to tell his story. Jeff Tucker seemed embarrassed as he began to speak. "I was plain hornswoggled by those critters, Miss Drew. They pulled me up here in a moving van. No, they pulled up here in a moving van and told me I'd better get after some trespassers they'd seen nearby. So," the elderly man went on with a sigh, "I believed them. One of the men went with me down to the lake and locked me in a shed. I just got out." He shook his head sadly. "And all this time they was robbing the place. Guess I'll be fired." Secretly, Nancy was inclined to agree, knowing the Tophams. But aloud, she said reassuringly, "Don't worry, Mr. Tucker. We'll report this robbery to the state police immediately. Perhaps the troopers can catch the thieves before they get rid of the stolen furniture." The caretaker looked somewhat relieved. "And excuse me. "And I can sure give a good description of those crooks. I'd never forget their ugly faces." "Fine," Nancy said. A sudden thought struck her. "Oh, before we go, Mr. Tucker, tell me, was there an old clock in this house? A tall, square-faced mantel clock?" Jeff Tucker's bright blue eyes squinted. Mantel clock. Why, sure enough. He pointed over to the mantel over the living room fireplace. Sat right up there. Got so used to seeing it, I couldn't remember for a minute. Don't know how come they took that too. Never thought it was worth much. The Tophams never bothered winding the thing. Nancy's pulse quickened. Knowing that the clock had been stolen, she was more eager than ever to have the thieves apprehended. She urged Jeff Tucker to hurry out to her car. "Where's the nearest police headquarters?" she asked him as they climbed into the convertible. "There's none till you get to Melbourne, Miss Drew. We'll hurry." Nancy headed as fast as possible for the highway. Would she succeed in heading off the thieves and recovering the old Crowley clock so she could learn its secret? And I need a drink of water. And that was the end of chapter 13. Now, chapter 14. A tense chase. "Which way is Melbourne?" Nancy asked the caretaker when they reached the highway. "Down there," he pointed. "That's the direction the thieves took," Nancy told him, noting the dust and tire marks which revealed the van's exit onto the highway. "But," she added, glancing at the dashboard clock, "they're probably too far away by this time for us to catch them." "Yes, dang it." Why did I just stop there? That was weird. "Yes, dang it," Jeff muttered. Nancy drove as rapidly as the law permitted toward Melbourne. All the while, Jeff Tucker peered from one side of the road to the other. "Those rascal thieves might just have nerve enough to stop and count their loot," he said to Nancy, "so I'm keeping a sharp eye peeled." Nancy smiled in spite of the gravity of the situation. "Maybe," she replied, "though I doubt that those men would be so reckless." "Oh, I don't mean out in plain sight. They might have pulled off the road back of somewhere. Back of some of these closed-up summer places." Oh my gosh. I had a hard time reading that because the way he says "of" is just "o" with an apostrophe. See, right there. Okay. "We'll watch for their tire marks and any dirt side road," the young sleuth said. Jeff became so absorbed in looking for the van's tire marks that he never asked Nancy why she had come to see him at the Topham's house. "Those fake movers," he said as they neared the outskirts of Melbourne. "I wonder how far they went." Nancy did not reply until they came to a crossroad. Then she pointed. "They turned north here on this dirt road. How much farther is it to Melbourne?" "Only a mile." As they came into the little town, Nancy asked her companion, "Which way to the state police headquarters?" "Go right down Central Avenue to Maple Street. Turn left, and there it is." Reaching headquarters, Nancy parked the car and hopped out. Jeff Tucker followed as she walked briskly into the office. "I want to report a robbery," she told the desk sergeant after identifying herself. For a moment, the officer, taken aback, looked in astonishment at Nancy. "You've been robbed?" he asked. "In our town?" So there's a picture of them in the state police office. "No, no," Nancy cried out. She then gave a quick but complete resume? What? Or is that supposed to be resume? I don't know. I'm just gonna say description. She gave a quick but complete description of what had taken place at the Topham's cottage. Excuse me. Jeff Tucker added his account. The police officer needed no further urging. Immediately, he summoned 4 men and issued orders. "Now," he said, turning to Nancy, "have you any idea which road the thieves took?" "Yes, officer. When we passed the road crossing a mile outside of town, I saw their truck tracks on the dirt road leading north. I'll be glad to show you." "Good. Lead the way. But first, I'll send out a general alarm." "Hurry," Nancy begged as she started out. "Those thieves have at least an hour's head start." Jeff Tucker had been advised to return to his home. Accordingly, he telephoned his son to come and pick him up in his car. "Good luck," he called as the others pulled away. "I sure don't know how I'm going to break this to the Tophams." Nancy was sorry for him, but she felt a thrill of excitement as she proceeded up the street, the police car following close behind. Beyond the town, Nancy chose the road which she felt certain the thieves had used. The 2 cars sped along until Nancy unexpectedly came to a fork. Both branches were paved, and no tire marks were visible. Nancy stopped. The police car pulled up alongside. "What's the matter?" asked the officer in charge, whose name was Elton. "Elton John!" No, I'm kidding. "I'm not sure which way to go now." The policeman sprang from his automobile. Oh, no, there's two. There's 2 policemen. The policemen sprang from their automobile and began to examine the road. Officer Elton said that if a moving van had passed that way, its tire marks had been obliterated by other vehicles. It was impossible to tell which route the thieves had traveled. "It'll be strictly guesswork from here," Officer Elton said to Nancy. "In that case," Nancy replied, "it's my guess that the van went to the left." She pointed to a sign which read, "Garwin, 50 miles. "Isn't Garwin a fairly large city?" she queried. "Yes." "Perhaps the thieves headed that way to dispose of the stolen furniture." The officer nodded approvingly. "Sounds reasonable," he said. "Well, in any case, we can't go much farther because we're near the state line." Nancy had another thought. "I'll take the road to Garwin and swing around toward River Heights," she smiled. "If I see those thieves, I'll let you know." "Well, you watch out, young lady. Those men may lock you up again." "I will. Anyhow, there'll be plenty of traffic as soon as I reach the main highway." Without giving the policemen an opportunity for further objection, Nancy started up and swung her car to the left. Sorry, I saw our notification now and was like, what is that? Okay. She noted in her rearview mirror that the squad car had turned onto the right-hand road. The officers must have picked up a clue, Nancy said to herself. But I certainly wish I could spot the van and maybe find a chance to look in the old clock. Nancy soon reached the main road. As mile after mile of highway spun behind her, Nancy's hopes grew dim. There were a number of side roads, any one of which the moving van might have taken to elude pursuers. The young sleuth decided to adhere to her original theory, that Sid and his pals had headed for Garwin and kept on the main highway. Those thieves think Jeff and I are still locked up and won't suspect they're being followed, she assured herself. Smiling, she thought hopefully, in that case, they won't be on their guard. About 10 minutes later, Nancy stopped at a service station to have her car refueled, and on impulse asked the attendant, "Did you by any chance see a moving van pass here recently?" "Sure did, miss," was the prompt answer. "About half an hour ago. I noticed it because the driver was going at a terrific speed for a van." Heartened, Nancy thanked him and resumed her pursuit, going past the turn for River Heights. If only I can overtake the truck and somehow examine the Crowley clock before I have to report to the police, she thought. Again, time elapsed, and Nancy still saw no sign of a moving van on the highway. It was growing dusk, and she decided that she would have to admit defeat. "I never caught up to them." She sighed in disappointment, and turning into the opposite lane, headed back for the River Heights Road. Just then, Nancy recalled that a little beyond the service station where she had stopped, she had noticed a rather run-down old inn. It was a slim hope, she knew, but the thieves might have put their van behind it while having a meal there. "I'll go in and ask anyhow," she decided. Nancy increased her speed as much as she dared, and within a few minutes came in sight of the inn. It stood back from the road a short distance and was half hidden by tall trees. In front of the building, a battered sign bearing the name Black Horse Inn creaked back and forth from the post. From a post, sorry. There was no sign of the van. Beyond the inn, Nancy glimpsed a garage and a large barn. The doors to both were closed. "I wonder," mused Nancy, "if the moving van is parked inside either one." At the far side of the inn was a small woods with a narrow road leading into it. For safety's sake, Nancy thought it best to park her car on this little used road. She turned off her car lights, pocketed the key, and walked back to the curving driveway leading to the inn. As Nancy made her way forward, her heart pounded. There were tire marks which could belong to Sid's van. They led to the barn. "Maybe those thieves are eating," she thought. "I'll look." Excuse me. As Nancy stepped onto the porch, the sound of raucous? The sound of, I'm just going to say erupted. The sound of erupted, bleh. What's another word for this word? Raucous. The sound of raucous laughter reached her ears. I'm just gonna say that's what it is. She tiptoed to a window and peered inside. What the young sleuth saw made her gasp, but felt a glow of satisfaction. In a dimly lighted room, 3 men were seated about a table eating. They were the thieves who had robbed the Topham bungalow. And that is the end of chapter 14. And let's see how many chapters we have left. Let's see. Chapter 20. We have 5 chapters left to go. I think. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. No, sorry, 6. We have 6 chapters left to go. Alright. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this 7th installment of Nancy Drew, The Secret of the Old Clock. I actually kind of missed reading this. Because it's nice to just, like, have a video to, like, talk to you guys and stuff, in a way. I mean, I do get to talk to you at the end of each of these videos. So, yeah, you know. I did want to bring up that I made another Instagram account, and I am going to start posting my, excuse me, oh my gosh. Alright. Try that again. I've made a second Instagram account that I am going to start posting my art on it. So, it's just called Art by Dream Chaser Grace. No uppercases, no underscores, no dashes, no anything. Just Art by Dream Chaser Grace. And, yeah. I have already posted one picture on it. It's a piece of artwork I am currently working on. I just need to figure out what I am going to put in the middle of it, because it's another graph paper art that I'm doing. I'm very fond of those. They're a lot of fun to do. And they look cool, and my sister said the first time I made one, my sister Leanne said that it looked trippy, and she was kind of right. It was a bit trippy, especially because of the colors I used in it. I believe I used green, orange, yellow, and purple. Either that or I just used the green, orange, and yellow. I can't remember correctly. But then I drew the face of Chimp Shrimp in the middle of it. And Chimp Shrimp is a cartoon character, kind of imaginary friend that one of my favorite YouTubers came up with himself. Hold on, I gotta look up his name, because for the life of me I can't remember it. Mark Parsons. Mark Parsons. Yeah. I was kind of hoping he'd see the picture, but it's okay. Yeah, so anyway, here, let me show you the current piece of art that I'm working on. Ah! Almost fell off the bed. That would not have been good. Alright. So this is the one that I am currently trying to figure out what to put in the middle. Don't mind the X's, that's on the next page. Yeah, if you guys have any ideas of what I can put in this, I can either put it that way or that way, but like the square, the space of the square that I made is the same length. When you go height or length, it's the same amount. So that would be 11 by 11 centimeters. And let's see for inches. Four and a half by 4.5 inches. So, yeah, and I decided to do a rainbow pattern because I haven't done one of those yet. So if you guys can figure out what I can put in the middle of this, then write it down in the comments, and I'll pick whichever one I think is a good idea. I mean, yeah, it would probably make sense to draw a rainbow within the rainbow, but I don't really want to have double rainbow in a way. And if you're wondering what the two X's are, I'm working on another one. This is supposed to be the two X's of Machine Gun Kelly, you know. And I'm just gonna do black and red throughout the whole thing. And I believe there was another one I started. Oh, I did this one a while back. I just drew a random elephant in the middle. And then here we go. I did this one as well. Well, I started it. That's Tiger from the Kipper the Dog show and series. So yeah. That's all the graph paper art that I am currently working on. I mean, I do draw other things other than graph paper art, but that's my favorite kind of art to do. So like, I looked up like some cool different patterns I could draw and stuff, so that's what I did here, as well as here. And yeah, but that's mainly for my graph art. And I have done so many more kinds of drawings. I am actually going to work on an entry for the fair next year, because people can submit art that they've made and stuff. But it has to be original art, I guess. I don't know. Actually, no. It can't be traced, I don't think. It can't be traced, and it can't be copyrighted. I don't know. I forgot the rules. But what I was planning on doing was drawing a scene from, like, the game scene, the game cover scene from The Secret of the Old Clock. So, like, I was gonna draw the broken clock and probably Nancy off to the side along with her roadster and stuff. But, you know, I'm still thinking of what to do. Alright, that's it for this installment of Nancy Drew The Secret of the Old Clock. Don't forget to smash that like button, drop a beat on that subscribe button, ding the notification bell on, and I will see you guys in the next video. Love you, Dream Chasers.